again, there it is. But also recognizing that it's not forever. Like things change, feelings change, circumstances change, and that um, there it is. It comes and it goes, and you don't necessarily have to latch on to it.
I think that's great. Okay, so we just got a note that the sound was not working.
Oh
um, so let's just start, over again with the introduction. Today we're talking about mindfulness. And just like the pandemic, not everything goes as planned.
no, planned.
We
Yeah.
sat here maybe 20 minutes before this, and we had plenty of time. And now the sound wasn't working. So things don't always go as planned. Um, so we're here with Shannon Martin, and she is a school psychologist at the MECCA Group. Dr. Ebanks, you want to go ahead and introduce her again to our
Of,
audience now that they can
of
hear us?
course. Yes, this is Shannon Martin. She is a nationally certified school psychologist, a registered yoga teacher, a doctoral student, and a mother of a soon-to-be 2-year-old son,
Mm-hmm.
as well, and a partner. So we have welcomed her to the MECCA Group, and she has really been an asset to our team. Um, she has taught yoga in the community schools and studio settings with yogis from the age of 4 to 64 in her free time. She likes to spend time with family, baking, tending to her vegetable garden. And Shannon believes that everyone deserves to breathe, to learn, and to heal. So once again, I'd like to welcome Shannon and to go back to how are you balancing it all?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. That's a great question. I ask myself that question often. How am I balancing it all? And I think it really comes down to, we talked about patience a little bit earlier today. So having patience with myself. People talk about time management all the time, but I think that's really true. And for me, what that means is really like having a priority, whether it's something that I write down a priority list or just having a running list in my head. But then also, I have an awesome support system in my partner. He's also in grad school, so we try our hardest to support each other, giving each other the time, the space, but also celebrating each other for those little moments. And we have a very supportive family, which is helpful, especially when you have a toddler. So, yes.
I don't. Yeah, I can barely manage just the simple tasks that I have as a single person. So kudos to you for all the work that you're doing, not just with your family, but with the world, Ms. Martin. So let's
Hmm.
talk about mindfulness.
Okay.
Okay, we have so much going on. We have a pandemic. We have people who may be sick around us. We have people who may be dying around us. We have
Mm-hmm.
our friends who we're concerned about, our family members who are not in our homes who we're concerned about. How do you compartmentalize and be mindful and grateful and find peace in this kind of moment that we're in, this crisis that we're in?
So I think one of the things to start with is really acknowledging and considering the fact that this is not normal, right? Like everyone keeps talking, this is such an unprecedented time. But in addition to being unprecedented, it's also a very uncertain time. Like it's not like anything most of us have ever lived through. And so I think acknowledging that, putting that on the table is, a good place to start. I also feel like if we're talking about mindfulness, we should maybe take a step back and think about what that really means. So, at the root of it, being mindful is paying attention on purpose to the present moment and not attaching any judgment to that. And so, we can acknowledge and pay attention to the fact that while this is not normal, any feelings or thoughts that maybe arise during this pandemic time, like those are completely normal, right? And so being able to say, things are happening. I'm experiencing grief right now. I'm experiencing fear. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling worried. That is a mindful moment as well. So it's not always being able to say, oh, I'm peaceful, but recognizing that you are having a feeling, and just like anything else, that feeling is going to come and that feeling is going to go. And that is, I think, for me at least, that's the moment of peace, is being able to recognize those feelings and to sit with them and not necessarily try to control them or change them, but to just be with them in the moment.
You talked about judging. Can you explain more about what does that mean to like not judge your feelings or emotions um, when you're trying to get into the space of being mindful?
Sure. So when we think about maybe some of the difficult things that come up, or difficult emotions like fear, sadness, so often we maybe ascribe a value to those things, um, feeling as though they're negative or things that I should not feel or things that I should not do. But if we talk about being non judgmental, it really comes down to not placing a value and not saying this is the bad thing or this is a good thing, but just saying it is, right? And so when I did my initial yoga teacher training, we had this saying that one of our teachers said to us, and then it became like a running, not a running joke, but it really rings true in a lot of different things. And so we would say, oh, there that is, right? And so the phrase "there that is" was just our way of acknowledging something that happened. So, in that instance, it was probably us trying a very difficult yoga posture and like falling out of it, or, coming to the training day late and saying, oh, well, there that is. So not saying, oh, that's the horrible thing or that's the bad thing, but just saying that it is and that it happened, and not necessarily holding on to that, but just acknowledging it, observing it, and saying, there that is.
I think
Right?
that's a very great technique. Do you remember "Whoop"? There it is. Like that's what comes to mind. So I may apply "there it is," there it is, to say "Whoop." There it is,
Oop, there
uh,
it is.
and really not assigning something
Mm-hmm.
um, immediately without processing and
Mm-hmm.
understanding what that value is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what can that do when you immediately assign, something negative or even something positive? What happens when you do that so quickly?
I think if we are quick to ascribe a value or a feeling to that thing, sometimes maybe we're not actually able to fully process it. But also, I think the power in not naming and not judging, or sorry, I think the power in not judging and not placing a value on something, but naming it, is in a way like taking our power in that moment, right? So, say if I'm feeling anxious about something, just say, oh, well, there goes that anxiety again, right? So, being able to name it and to put it out there means that it's not just hovering over my head anymore. That I've named it, I've observed it, I know it's happening, but in doing that, I know it's happening means that it also then has less control over me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know, if we're talking about in counseling or in therapy, that's often one of the first things we work on is naming a feeling. Not necessarily saying, let's get rid of that feeling right now today, but let's just start by naming it.
So naming it is the game. Um,
I think so. I think that's a part of it, yeah.
so you, mindfulness. I'm an essential worker. I also have children at home. Um, how can you fit mindfulness into your schedule? And is it a specific activity? Is it just um, clarity? Is it what what is it, and how can we fit it in our daily schedule?
So I think mindfulness can look like a lot of different things for different people. So often we think of mindfulness and we might be thinking particularly of mindfulness meditation or yoga, right? And someone once told me, and it kind of stuck with me, that meditation or mindfulness really looks like just doing one thing at a time and paying attention to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, you're into yoga and you want to do that, you want to move, you want to stretch, you want to breathe in that way, then maybe that's what your mindful moment looks like. For some people, that might not be it. So I think the key is taking a step back and not necessarily saying, okay, let me add something new to my already stressful, hectic schedule, but how do I find a mindful moment in what I'm already doing?
Yeah.
So if we think about, it's just being present in the moment, right? So that can be me playing with my son and having my phone down, having the TV off, and just being with him in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're together, we're playing, we're laughing, we're doing whatever we're doing. For some people, that might also look like, cooking your favorite meal and just putting all of your attention into doing that at that moment in time. For someone else, that might mean, turning on your favorite song and just dancing and moving and relishing in that moment without allowing anything else to kind of cloud that moment or to distract you from that. It could be, we talk about, some people even do mindful eating, just like eating your meal. That's something you have to do every day, multiple times a day, right? But when's the last time you really sat and ate your food and really thought about, oh, this is how this feels right now for me. This is how this tastes. Thinking about what went into making the meal, right? And so there, I think, are lots of little ways that we can take things that we're already doing and maybe just go about them from a different point of view, an intentional and a purposeful point of view. You're just in it.
It sounds a lot about like being present.
That's exactly.
And it's hard to be present without having a pandemic, right? And so getting into that space of being present can be challenging for a lot of people. Are there exercises, breathing exercises that one can do to like get into that space, or just you know how can you get there?
Yeah. So I think one of the great places to start is with your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially in a time like now, when we're thinking about coronavirus and other things, we might feel like we don't have control over a lot of things, right? But one of the things that we typically have control over is our breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even just taking a minute and taking 3 deep breaths, right? So, saying, okay, I'm going to breathe in and I'm going to breathe out. Doing that 3 times. If you feel, maybe it's helpful for some people, I like to place one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly, so that I can feel the breath, right? So doing that 3 times is a great place to start, and that's something that, even children can do. With them, it might be helpful if you think of like a visualization. So, okay, we're going to pretend we're blowing out our birthday candles. We're going to blow it 3 times. So take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe, 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 breathe. Okay, now blow out all the candles that you can, right? And so making it accessible, making it easy, making it fun. There is another strategy. So there's a very well-known meditation teacher, Tara Brach, who actually is based out of the Virginia, Bethesda area. She uses an acronym called RAIN, right? So something that's easy to remember, RAIN, RAIN. And the R stands for recognizing. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to just recognize how I'm feeling, where I am in my body right now. And then I'm going to allow whatever that is. So say I'm feeling happy, right? I'm going to allow that happiness, or say I'm feeling sad, and allow that sadness to just be there. I'm not trying to control it. I'm not trying to change. Then the I stands for investigate. Where do I feel that sensation or that feeling in my body? I know for me, a lot of times, if I'm feeling stressed or like overwhelmed, I feel it in my shoulders. So just allowing that feeling and investigating it and finding where it is in my body. And then the last letter, N, stands for nurture. So once you've allowed that feeling to happen, you've located where you feel it, if you feel it in your body, taking a minute to nurture that space. So So like if I'm saying, oh, I'm stressed and I know that my neck is all crunchy and my shoulders are up to my ears, and taking a minute to just nurture, right? So maybe that's me putting my shoulders down, and maybe that's myself giving myself a hug. So I think there's a lot of different ways. Breathing is one thing, movement is another, and I think also giving yourself a loving touch is important too, especially when maybe we're in a place where we're isolated from others and we're keeping our social distance. Just taking a minute to also recognize that yes, I'm not with other people, but I can always be with myself.
Just listening to you, I was kind of doing some breathing, not deep because I didn't want to be on the camera, but it just felt really great.
Yeah.
Just to take a, a deep breath and then also position myself in a space to receive um, being present. And so I definitely think that breathing is one of those crucial things that can really change your perspective about what's happening in the present. Um, you said something about children earlier. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Other than breathing exercises, what can you do with children to encourage mindfulness and actually teach mindfulness?
Yeah. Um, and so I want to start. One of the biggest things I think for doing mindfulness with children is modeling mindfulness, right? And so we talk about how families are our children's first teachers. And so they look to us to see what they can do, what they should do. So modeling mindfulness with your child or children in your life can be, take what does that look like? So if I'm playing with them or I'm being with them, I'm with them, right? I'm not with them and on my phone, or I'm not with them and working, or I'm not with them and talking to whoever, cooking dinner. And yes, those things are going to happen. Even though a lot of us are working from home, our days, our schedules are still busy, still full. But I think if you are able to take a purposeful moment, whether that is 5 minutes or whatever you have available in your schedule, to just say, okay, well, we're going to be here together right now. So modeling that mindfulness, I think, is super important. And then also appealing to the senses, right? And so if we're thinking about mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment, our body and our breath is something that can always bring us back to that moment. And so for kids, they might be like, well, I don't know what that means. So like pay attention. Kids have a lot of kids have a hard time paying attention. But if you can tie it in with their senses, that might be a little easier. So one exercise might be, okay, let's think of 5 things that you can see. Name 5 things that you can see. And they're looking. Okay. Now name 4 things that you can hear. Okay, and then they're taking a minute to process. Let me think. Let me listen closely. 4 things that I can hear. Okay, now what are 3 things that you can touch? What are 3 things that you can touch? Okay, and then you might say, okay, now what's one thing you can taste? What's one thing you can taste? Oh, I skipped 2. Well, what's 2 things you can smell? Right. So taking a minute to help them really tune in with their senses. And then one last thing I think, and this can be for students or children of all ages or all like developmental levels, finding something that they like to do and joining in with them in that. And so for a lot of adults, we know what our self-care looks like or should look like. Like I like, listening to music, or some people like online shopping, or, whatever brings you joy. Being able to recognize, acknowledge what brings your child joy and doing that with them and encouraging them to do that. So I think even though, they may be little people, they may not understand things in the way that we do, I often think that actually kids are a little better at being mindful than adults are, right? If you look at a baby, a toddler, all they know how to do is live in the present moment, right? They're not
Yeah.
thinking about tomorrow or like the day after or whisper dinner. No, they just know that I'm here right now. This is what's happening, right? And so they know what to do. And I think if we are able to really key in and see what it is that they are enjoying right now, they might also be able to show us what their mindfulness looks like.
I just love all of that, and capturing how to get kids to capture the present moment with their senses. It's a wonderful experience because oftentimes we don't really take in all of our senses. We're so up here and we don't really take in our environment, so that we can shift our environment. So I think that's really great. And your voice, listening to you, you could put it on tape and that would relax. Oh yeah, it's like yes, I'm so at peace right now. So that makes sense why you do all these other things because I think you're wonderfully skilled at that. Um, States are opening up. We see 3 states that have opened up so far in a small way. How do you deal with the anxiety of getting back into a new normal or a new state after being in, quarantine or self isolation for over a month? How do you kind of acclimate to getting back to some way that we used to do?
Yeah, that is a great question. I actually think Dr. Ebanks and I were kind of talking about that earlier, when we were talking about our kids and what it might be like when, schools reopen or, we start sending kids back to daycare. And I think one of the biggest things, just thinking personally, is is going to have to be like patience, but then also grace. Like I know that's going to be difficult and that things are going to take time to adjust for me, but then also like for my child. Like we've been home all day, every day together for over a month. And so I know that's going to be hard. That's going to be difficult. But there that is. Like it's
Yeah.
it's,
Oop, there it is.
it's pretty hard, but it's
Yeah.
eventually those feelings are going to change. That hardness isn't going to be so hard. Just like the first time we went back to school. So I think maybe we can also find some lessons in that. Like, yes, we're going to be re-entering a world that maybe doesn't look the way it did previously. Maybe we are taking a little bit more precautions than we did before, but it's also not going to be the first time we've stepped into something unfamiliar.
I agree with that. I say this about fear. I say yes, maybe, always. Yes, is it scary? Maybe is it rational? But is it
Mm-hmm.
always a great idea to push forward?
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that whoop. There it is. That yes, we've experienced um, we've experienced some crazy stuff happening,
Yeah.
and it's real, and the fear will be present, but acknowledging that you don't have to jump all the way in. You can take
Mm-hmm.
your time and process that. I like that because some people, I think, not dealing with those expectations right would get
Mm-hmm.
people to be anxious,
Mm-hmm.
um, and maybe thinking that they have to like just jump fully into being back the way it was because we'll never be the way that we were,
Right.
no matter how hard we try, which is a part of grief, um, Shannon, right? And Dr.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ebanks, it's really about kind of grieving what we've lost and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance um,
Mm-hmm.
into our new
Yes.
life, right?
Right.
I know, Shannon, just listening to you, I jotted some things down, some tips that I could certainly walk away with, and wanted to know if you wanted to add anything in addition to that. I wrote down acceptance. So often we're so critical of ourselves, and we think that other people are viewing us or judging us, but we're being critical of ourselves. So mindfulness takes in the concept of really accepting yourself, accepting that you're going to make mistakes, and then also in terms of recognizing those feelings. And like you said, identifying those feelings, labeling them, naming them, and knowing that that is a part of you, but not all of you. You know, that that is a present state, not your existence.
Right.
You know, the other, which is so often, people are distracted all the time. So being present, being still is so important. Like you said, even for a meal, we're typically, you know, eating. You go to restaurants, you see people on their cell phones and, you know, eating. They're not taking a break and disconnecting. You know, families, you know, this is a perfect opportunities for family to, again, sit at the dinner table if they can and incorporate just dinner time, because so often a lot of families have been separated in terms of different work shifts and, you know, after school activities, that eating is really a quick, you know, 20-minute in the car, you know, situation sometimes. So really being present for eating, and then your senses, being able to take those deep breaths, that loving touch that you talked about, recognizing and identifying where we're feeling pain in our body, or, you know, the stress in our body, because so often us ignoring those is what results in health complications. So knowing where they are, where they're present, and how we can relieve them is, you know, is vital. And so I wanted to ask you, are there any other tips that you would like to, you know, close with?
One thing, thank you for that. That was a great summary.
Yeah, I was thinking Dr.
I write down
Ebanks
my notes.
is a fantastic note taker,
Right.
and she listens. Like, wow.
I'm present. I am present in this moment.
Great.
I told my children, shh.
That was awesome. Thank
Way
you.
to synthesize and put that together and paraphrase. Yeah, that was great.
I will say the one additional thing that comes to mind is that it's a practice. And when I say that, I mean, like, it's not like you're not gonna, if you've never taken the time to have a mindful moment, or to do deep breathing, or to do yoga, or to do meditation, like, it doesn't have to all come at once. Right? And so,
not overnight.
No, and that's okay. And I think that's actually where the learning, that's where the healing, that's where it happens, right? So people will say, you know, the hard part about meditation is the coming back, right? So when you let your mind wander and maybe you're not focusing on that singular thing, but when you come back to your breath, or when you come back into your body, like, that is the work, right? And so recognizing that it's a practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's just whatever you need and whatever you're able to give. So sometimes I'll tell myself, okay, I'm going to wake up, and before everybody else in the house gets up, I'm going to have like a quiet moment to myself. I'm going to make some coffee or tea, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to meditate. And the amount of times that's like actually happened while I've been home, or just in a given day, is so rare. And I have to, like, acknowledge that that's okay, because that's not what it's really about. It's not really about, having a fixed regimented routine. For a lot of people that helps, but I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing something when the intention behind that was really just to take care of myself. So I'm not going to beat myself up, because that means if I slept in, that's what I needed. And that was my mindfulness for the morning, was sleeping in and recognizing that's what I needed.
That's an excellent tip.
Yeah, that is a very excellent tip. Just as long as you don't take that to the extreme and neglect other things, right? If you're sleeping in too much. So I like that, because it's more about um, again, being compassionate to yourself, right? Love and compassion, not just to others but yourself, and realizing that um, you need to allow space for compassion in your life, and space for patience and space to grow and space to um, kind of take on some of the things and process what's happening in your life and really use that to move forward in a way that is promotes well-being. Um, so I love that, and hopefully, if one thing that people will get out there today through this broadcast is that the compassion for self and the the need to love yourself and just really don't judge every moment. I think that's what I get. Stop judging every moment, every idea, every thought, everything. Just whoop, there it is. I that's what I'm walking away with today.
That's the takeaway, and I feel like that's really the point, is like being able to, especially if we're talking about stress and anxiety. So much anxiety comes from thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow and the day after, and like what's coming that I'm not ready for, right? But if we come back to the present moment and just be in that present moment, I think that in itself is like a self intervention, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not. I was texting one of my friends recently, and she was like, I'm just really taking it today, and maybe thinking about what I can do tomorrow, but not going beyond that. And that's what's working for her. And I think that also sounds like a practice in mindfulness. Like I'm in this moment. I'm not in tomorrow or weeks down the line or when schools open back up. Nope. I'm just right here, and I think that's perfect for right now. So yeah, whoop, there it is. I
Whoop,
think that's the theme for today.
whoop, there it is. I love it. That I'm gonna be saying that, and I'm gonna be
It's Fun Friday. Whoop, there it
whoop,
is.
Whoop,
there
there
it is. Too bad I don't have time to play that song, but but I think that's really important. To just to be in the moment because I think we're so used, not many people, but a lot of times people can be either outside of the moment in the past, which causes depressive affect, and
right,
they're in the
right.
future, which causes anxiety. And if you're just in the present, allowing things, sensing things, feeling, touching, smelling, being sensory aware, um, I think that's where changes can happen, where we promote our own, physical and mental well-being. And so I love that. Dr. Ebanks, do you have anything else to add?
Uh, no, I wanted to ask Shannon, are there any resources that you suggest, or any websites that you suggest besides the MECCA Group?
Yes, besides our awesome team, um, I would recommend, I use Insight Timer, which is an app on your phone. If you have a smartphone, you can download it, and it has a lot of, like, a whole host of free guided meditations.
Hmm.
Um, on any really a lot of different things. They also have like playlists that you can play, listen to restful, calming music if you're, may have some trouble sleeping. And they also just have a timer. So if you're, have a meditation practice already, you can just time it. And there is also an app called Liberate Meditation, and that's specifically for people of color, a meditation app. And then there is also for the little ones, for the children, Yoga Foster is a nonprofit. And so their whole purpose is to bring yoga and mindfulness to school age children. And right now, because of all the distance learning, on their website, yogafoster.org, they have a whole host of resources specifically for children. And so some of them are like movement, yoga practices, but they also have guided meditations that specifically deal with difficult emotions. So they, in this, in Spanish and in English. So they have like meditations to deal with anxiety, feelings of anxiety, meditations for children to deal with feelings of depression or uncertain or just difficult feelings. And so if you have a child that may be experiencing some of those, I would definitely recommend looking into Yoga Foster.
Oh, excellent. We will certainly get that information from you, all of the resources you provided, and post that also on our Facebook page, as well as on our Instagram page.
Okay.
So thank you, Shannon, for sharing your information with us, your experience. It's been a pleasure having you as part of the MECCA team. And again, so many of our team members do so much more than, outside of what they do for MECCA. But we do have a team of therapists, social workers, psychologists, occupational therapists, and as well as physical therapists that work with children, young adults, and any adults that are having difficulty, not even during this pandemic, but just in terms of life stress related, matters. That once this chaos, and crisis is over, there are other moments that people have difficulty transitioning and recognizing and understanding. So we certainly encourage people to be able to reach out to us at the MECCA Group, at the MECCA Group LLC.com, or to give us a call at 202-529-3117. As well as, if we cannot provide the services for you and we're not a good match, that we can certainly provide referrals if you are outside of the DMV area. We do have a few announcements that I would like to make, that we certainly appreciate all of our viewers to ask questions and comments, and we want to know what other ideas and topics you would like to have us present on and get guest speakers to talk about. We want to make sure that this is relatable to you. So please provide any comments or questions. You can send them through Messenger, or you can just post them on our website. Next week, we are bringing Miss Samuel back. She will be speaking about managing grief during the COVID-19. There are many that have lost loved one as a result of COVID-19, who have others who have passed due to other health-related complications, who have died as a result of accidents or other traumatic incidences, and people have not been able to grieve properly, attend a funeral, or, say their goodbyes due to the restrictions. So we want to be able to, again, provide information, have a discussion, and provide resources in that. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to post those. And our last announcement is that we are going to Instagram Live as well. We know that some viewers are not on Facebook, but they're on Instagram. So starting next week, we're going to do a kind of like a Q&A, talk on Instagram. So again, thank you so much. Thank you, Brandon, for hosting. Thank you, Shannon, for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. This was awesome. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. And I guess out there, if you are struggling with mindfulness, if you're struggling with being in the present, remember, it's not about judgment. It's about being there. And whoop, there it is. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.